Solitary confinement within my mind led me to the water to find myself as I write, pushing towards the light, creating art that is poetry. This became my therapy. This is JDR Creatives, and this is Lonely Walks by the Water. By the water, I'm gonna read you some more poetry. This one's called 10 Years Later. 10 years later, I am not afraid to be vulnerable, speaking from my heart. There aren't rules placed on my soul. I am free to move in any way I choose. 10 years later, I have cried many tears, conquered numerous fears, stood in front of colleagues receiving cheers, then sat on a call knowing it was the end after all those years. 10 years later, I will walk away from the love I shared, women who never spared my heart or the feelings I had, all the failures in pursuit of love, then left me lonely questioning myself. 10 years later, it's all coming to an end, the way I see myself and the world I live in. The time has come to achieve everything that I set out to complete. As the circle will close, I know it must be done. 10 years later, with symbolism and synchronicity, two have been sent away, for I still love them anyway. Both of them have an item of mine that I've shared. I leave with them to remind them I cared. No longer seeking those possessions or even their attention. Onward is the mission. 10 years later.
What's your mood like?
I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. I think we can, as we did last time, we had a great discussion.
Yeah.
I think, we can have another great discussion. The way I kind of looked at it, writing, as we were thinking about these episodes, I tried to use words to kind of convey the emotions of what I would be thinking. And so, like last time, we kind of talked about sadness, loneliness, and kind of working through that, expectations. And so this time, my thought process is understanding perspective, how people label you, family, having the courage to push forward, asking certain questions of myself, and then searching to find those answers. And so, that's led us to another lonely walk by the water. There is a beauty I can't begin to describe, that twinkle that shines off of the water. The sky is your canvas. Vivid colors make up the skyline. The day is beautiful. The sun at full peak. The water is calm, and I am amazed at the beauty right before my very eyes. So yeah, we got another calm, beautiful day.
You basically just described what's going on right now.
Yeah, but I did that 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, but once again, it worked out perfectly because it's another beautiful day out here.
Yeah, and they say poetry is timeless. So hey, there's
said
proof of that right there.
You said it. You said it.
That's it.
God bless me today. It worked out perfectly. You have the light is perfect, the water's perfect, so the poem worked for it, as you said.
So when you're writing your poetry,
Mhm.
do you feel like a sense of calmness when you're writing?
Now I do. I was talking to my dad about it last week, because after we talked in the last, moment we were together, it started off as the cathartic process for me. So we're taking them now and we're jotting it down. But as we talk through the questions and realizing that, I can sit here and we can have conversation. We can be in this moment. I can be in this moment if I'm standing out here alone, and then I can go back and write what I'm necessarily feeling. So it's gone from this cathartic process to retrospect, and that was part of what I talked about in not just feeling the writing, but actually creating it. That meant something to me because a lot of people can write when they're angry or when they're happy, but can you write when you don't want to?
Mm-hmm.
That was what was important to me. And so I think that's been the evolution from where I started at 14 to when I picked back up at 25 to where we are now. I actually have tried to hone this in as a skill. So, being here is going to bring calmness to me. That way, when I get back and I get in my element, the words just flow. I
Mm.
don't have to work for it. You know,
Do you have to search for a subject to write about?
no, no. I mean, the backdrops have always kind of helped with that. So it's kind of like Mel will understand that as a creator. You can see something in your mind sometimes, and I'm like, okay, let me go shoot it. Once I shoot it, then the words just start coming to me there. I've had people like when I first started, authors from around the world would just give me a word or give me something to look at and then challenge me that way. So I was able to challenge myself in that way. But I can it's just kind of seeing it and feeling it, putting it together. I don't have to search for it. Whereas years ago, 7, 8 years ago, it was probably there was some times where if I felt like I wasn't writing enough, then I would start doing that. That's kind of where, as I talked about the last time, 4 line stanza came from, where I would get up and I'm like, okay, I need to hone my art. If I'm not honing it, I'm not making it better. I'm not using this gift to making this skill. So then I would say a phrase, or I'd be in some hotel somewhere and just think of the city, and then just think how the city made me feel, and then write 4 lines
Hmm.
and go from there. So that's another step in the evolution. Now I'll do 4 line stanza here and there now. Just that's just fun to me, just to kind of get up and play around with it. But no, I'm at a place where I'm free, so the poetry it just comes naturally. A lot of the poems that we put up and that I've had to voice, it was a 10 minute or less type of deal. The only thing sometimes is trying to end it. That's always my hardest part. Because
Hmm.
like I said, a lot of times I can go 50, 70, 90 stanzas and keep going. But at some point, I put the car in the garage. Uh, so ending is usually the hard, but starting that's easy. I always got something to say apparently.
How do you determine if one of your writings is good enough?
I was waiting. You set me up for that one. I was like, I hope I get by. Maybe we get to that last episode he asked me. Oh Lord, that's really been kind of we talked last time on regulations and limitations, and that used to be something that was really tough. Um, I'm not gonna say I've mastered it. It's not a struggle like it used to be, but I kind of put it to you in this. There are poems I'm sitting on right now that I wrote 4 years ago that I'm still kind of like, it's one word, it's a sentence. Um, but now, if if I feel it has the energy, it's going out. So like I was in Daytona a few days ago, and you know we was beachfront, beautiful. I took some shots, and it's like, nah, that's not what I want. And I'm sitting there with my curtain closed, with the sun's peeking through it, and I'm doing some work, and I'm like, I take the picture. I'm like, yeah. And it's not wasn't anything remarkable. Nobody even liked it yet, but it was me kind of talking about my adventures over the year, and it just all came to me. It was literally from taking that picture to putting the words to the backdrop. It was like 7 minutes. So the rule now is it's I can't sit on it. It's got to go out. If it's completed, it's completed. And if it's going to, I have never tried to pick my pen up to offend anyone or disrespect anyone.
Mhm.
But if it needs to be said, it has to be said. I don't think I think I have spared people pretty much. I don't put anyone's names in anything. I can speak on a subject without necessarily touching that person specifically, but if they look, they know it's about them. And I know because my dad called me one time when I wrote one, and because my stepmom shows him all my poems. He's like, somebody made you mad? Oh yeah, they did. He was like, but you don't hold it back anymore. No, no
Mhm.
more holding back because there's a difference in me saying this person's horrible, this, but me actually being artistic and then conveying how I feel and then how I resolve situation. We all need that. People need to see that we're all gonna go through conflict, but we don't have to lose ourselves going through it. We can navigate the madness. And so like I told you before, I think it's my duty to make sure that the gift that God gave me, I can't sit on stuff. I've sat on it for way too long. So now it's all coming out.
So, would you say that your poetry is thought provoking, or
That's the thought.
that's the thought?
Yeah.
Okay, you have thought provoking, but there's
Mm.
also emotional driven.
I think I sit at the center of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe being centered between those is it's kind of where I'm at. I want you to think it's like I said, I tried to write the pieces that you could sit down and you could feel it. That's the beautiful thing about where we are now and even creating this series is that to have Mel look at it and have a feeling similar. It's like the Venn diagram. We have our similarities, but then, we have some differences. So we can sit in this bubble together and see this art for what it is. But then he can feel something a little bit different from where he was at. I felt something different from when I wrote it. And that's ultimately what I've been trying to do. I'm trying to give my works and hope that I can get people to think and then I can touch the emotion in them so that we can grow them. Because there's a lot of people, I mean, I suffered in silence for a long time. I don't want anybody to suffer in silence. If you're going through something, let's get it out. Let's work together. Everybody usually has a support system. So usually, but yeah, we have friends that we can lean on. A lot of times as men, as we've talked about before, we tend to go inward into our own abyss instead of reaching out and saying, I really need your help. Just can you let me vent for 5 minutes, something like that. But yeah, I believe being at the center of it is what I'm trying to strive. I want everybody to feel like they have a place in my space.
As with anything,
Mhm.
you have people who are going to be for you and those that are against you.
Mhm.
Okay? So, what would you say to someone who's going through something and they want to turn to poetry to write, to keep them motivated to push forward and not let those people that would say, hey, that's not a good idea, you don't have the talent for you, no one is going to listen to you?
Go ahead and get to the enemy again. You can't spend time worrying about what the world has to say. Because the truth be told, there are plenty of people who told me that what I was doing was silly. Um, you're too emotional. I heard it a lot. You're too emotional. This is emotional, and I was thankful for their criticism because it made me look again at what I was trying to convey. It wasn't just about being caught up in the whirlwind of my emotions, but could I actually convey how I feel in this moment and then move you through the story? This is one thing that we've all texted somebody when we're angry,
Hmm.
but you're stuck in the center of that storm. How does it look after the storm has passed through? You know, um, I would tell people do what you love. It's just we don't have the time we believe we do. That's the construct. What is time? You believe that you have all this time to get these things done. Don't worry about what people say because they're gonna tell you it's horrible. They told me. I mean, I had plenty of people. Oh, you're gonna write a book? Ah, that won't work. What do you have to say? No one wants to hear about what you've done at work. It's not about work. It's about me. It's about my journey. But I didn't allow their fears to stop me. Now, at the beginning of it, their fears complicated how I saw myself. Their fears became the mirror of me looking at my own doubt. Oh, I don't. Maybe they are right. Maybe they are. But then I got to a point where I decided I wasn't going to be caged by anybody's thoughts. So I became free. I'm no longer bound to what anyone has to say. I could publish this book. It could be horrible. People burn me online. I don't care. They'll never take the fact that I wrote it. They'll never take the fact the way that I published it, and I'm an author. It doesn't matter to me. And that's kind of what it is. You have to move the train out of the station. No one's going to do it for you but you.
Yes, we have people who will attack you for the way you feel,
Correct.
and that we know there's no right or wrong way about how you feel.
Your feelings are yours.
Yes, they are yours.
Hmm.
So, would you say to a new person that's going through some things, own your feelings and never let somebody tell you that you're wrong for feeling that way.
Yeah, that's the first start. You do have to own your feelings, but then you also need to sit with them, because if someone disrespects me constantly and I don't know how to, I'm not the master of my own emotions, and I go upside their head, two wrongs don't equal that right. I understand that if somebody's lashing out at me, there's a deficiency with them. It ain't on me. So yes, it starts with owning them, but then it also sit with it, because a lot of times when people lash out at you, you may have not cleared up something with yourself. That's where people get us. That's where they got me. Oh, it's not going to be good enough. They only reflected my own self doubt, And once I was able to move through that and realize, no, I believe in myself. It doesn't matter. 20 people could come up here right now and tell me, man, you're horrible. I read your stuff. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I'm still gonna publish one tonight. That's how it's gonna be, because I believe in me. I don't need anyone else's belief to kind of get me to this point. That's why we're all here. I wrote this book. I locked it up. I put limitations on my heart, and now we've gotten to the point where I was able to free myself from that cage, and now we're giving people vulnerability.
But your task was completed because they read it.
Correct.
They have to read it to
Correct.
judge it.
Correct.
So it's on them to get something good out of it. Or if, like you say, they don't like it, it doesn't matter.
No,
Somebody else is searching for that same thing.
correct.
Wow.
Yep.
This right here is really deep when you think about that.
Hmm.
They're gonna say, "Oh, you're horrible," but hey, you took the time to read it.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I mean, look, it comes back to what I've said a lot about being. We want to, as human beings, we need to center ourselves between grace and gratitude. I can give you grace because, hey, you read it.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's my gratitude for you doing it. Oh, you and nothing. Thank you for that, because I get to sit here right now and fellowship with you, which is such a blessing. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? I
Yes.
get to do that. And if someone criticizes me, I get to feel that criticism. You had to go look at my work to criticize it, like you said. So thank you.
Yes. So that right there should tell you to keep going forward.
I cannot stop. There's For every one of them that told me that it wasn't going to work, that I'll never get to that point, that I won't, like, spoken word was another thing, what we've been doing. We're doing these pieces. I was afraid of that for some time. I remember there were gigs in the city, and every time I would go to it, I would chicken out and drive home. I never believed that I would get to this point. Deep within me, I believed I could, but I never saw it. I couldn't visualize it because I'm like, oh no, I'm afraid to. I don't like my own voice, So when people like it, But then the point is being around Mel's energy and realizing, like, no, we got to do it, because he's stepping out of his limits, so it's forcing me to do the same thing. But because of the journey I've already taken and I'm freed, it's like, why do I hold any of this back? There is a kid somewhere in the world right now that feels completely invisible and alone. And if they can hear what I said, the prayer is that it gets them turned back the right direction. There's a man, there's a woman, there's somebody. And I know this because I've recorded episodes of the podcast, and I've had people send me emails and thank me for my perspective and being vulnerable. So if I can do that in the cover of darkness, because that's how my podcast works, you
Hmm.
don't really see me, you only hear me.
Hmm.
Why not go to the final step and then let them finally see me?
That's good. So how do you balance putting out your poetry between the light and the dark?
Luckily enough, I live in the world of the living, and I have good people around me to help me with that. I'm blessed with my son, so if it weighs too dark, there'll always be a moment he can pull me back out of it. You know what I mean? There's no storm that's too dark anymore, because as he's getting older, there's all these beautiful moments I get. Like yesterday, they're playing their final game. He's playing against one of his friends they went to elementary school with. His mom, who's a teacher, she's there, and it's we're all laughing as parents. But then I'm shooting this game because that's my responsibility. It's not the coach.
Hmm.
It's just to shoot it and get good shots. And when I edited last night, sent him, he was like, "Oh wow, this looks really good." Those are the moments that make you go, "Okay, he sees what I do." But at the same time, like I told my dad, I get to be his historian. I get to sit here and record all the beautiful things he's doing. That even when he thinks, oh, I don't know, that wasn't good enough. Like, no, that was incredible. That
Mm-hmm.
was what you did, how you played was awesome. And moments like that remind me there's no storm. There's no storm that keep me in that darkness anymore. But there's a responsibility to be able to speak in both, and that's the work I have to continue to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So you balance it, by looking at your family.
I believe family, friends, the people who are closest to me, they bring me energy because even when I feel as that I don't have, it's too hard. I'm very thankful for who is around me. All these people who have come before me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you keep the negative people out of your headspace?
Hmm. I don't really live there anymore. Like I said before, and it sounds bad. Like my dad will say it a lot. He's like, "How do you think like that? If you say something negative about me, I am one of the people who I've always tried to lead with the positive intent. I've always, even if I'm wrong, I'm gonna tell you I'm wrong. I'm not going out here trying to do mean things against people. If I disrespect somebody I didn't know, my apologies. You know, how can we move forward? So you can say a lot of things about me. You can say I'm this, I'm that. That's how you think I am. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's a side of a ghost that you believe I'm to be, but that's not me. So you can keep that. You can, like I said, growing up in this town, going to school in this town, and just how I grew up, they rejected me anyway. I grew up with it. I was never black enough. I spoke too proper. I was too educated. I didn't run around and do dumb stuff. I went home. I listened to my mom. You know, mom was scary. I was gonna go home
Oh
because I
yeah.
didn't want Maria to be nowhere to come get me. Because Maria played old school. Maria ain't gonna hurt you like that. She gonna
Mm-hmm.
embarrass you
Oh
at the
yeah.
highest level.
Mm-hmm.
So kids growing up with me, they always had this certain impression of, oh, he teaches past, he's arrogant, he thinks he's better. And it was like, no, the problem I faced was I wanted to be near the flame.
Mm-hmm.
And because they rejected me, I had to learn, I had to make a decision. You either stay here and wait for them to get you warm, or you trek in that cold and figure it out. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of the things that I did by doing it on my own, now as I got older, they try to come back, hey, hey, and I don't hold anything against anybody. We were all young, and
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a family that couldn't really see who I was.
Mm-hmm.
They doubted it. I don't know, you seem a little weird, so I don't like those words. But no, I have to give them grace because ultimately they didn't understand how great I was, or maybe some of them did, and they tried to stuff me down. I still don't have the answer on that, nor do I need it. I just know that I'm supposed to go onward. I can't stay in the spot.
Is if you look at back in history, all the greats were called weird because people didn't understand that they were operating on a higher frequency
Hmm.
and their energy was different.
Correct.
So if you're not doing the same things that they are doing, whether good or bad, you're an outsider.
Correct.
Hmm.
Correct. And that's when you're young, it's tough. It was tough for me. Going to school, being on the outside, being on the fringe, it was very tough. But as I got older, I realized, I mean, it's what parents tell you. Like Johnny, Susie, they ain't about nothing. So you stay where you need to, and then you start seeing that, and it's like, I don't want that to happen to them, though. You know,
Mhm.
I don't want people to bump their head. I want all of us to prosper. But at the same time, I don't know. I've always known there's an internal rhythm that we have to get up and go. There's too much to get done because there's not enough time,
Mhm.
before I'm called.
Mhm.
So I didn't have time to wait on them. And ultimately, as I've gotten older, I've been able to receive flowers. And, oh, yeah, you always this. I just, we couldn't see it. I realized that it took me my older years to figure it out. I was angry
Mhm.
at you when I was in my teens and my 20s. I was cussing myself, but nah, we react too much out of fear. And you just have to understand that that person's in deficit and just pray for them and hope that they can get to where they need to. It has no bearing on where I'm going because they're not in my way.
Mhm.
So,
So when you're labeled different, how do you reconcile with yourself to say it's okay that I'm alone?
When I was younger, it was stay busy, and then being busy couldn't save me. So I had to really. That's when I say sit with your feelings. You gotta sit with your feelings. You gotta accept everything that comes with that. How you feel. Oh, I'm not this. I'm not that. Okay, why am I saying that? Because I should never speak down to myself. So internally, why am I doing that? Okay, well, the conditions of your environment don't accept you. They've never allowed you to stand near the flame. You were always on the outside. So you obviously something's wrong with you. No, 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 no. They're too afraid of you standing near the flame and what that represents for them. Like I've told Mel before, I'm a mirror to a lot of people. You stand too close to me, my light can be very, very intense on you, and that burns. My light's not meant to burn. It's
Mm-hmm.
meant to illuminate, enlighten. So if you're not getting that experience from me, something's wrong with you,
Mm-hmm.
not me. It
Mm-hmm.
means that you have not done the work on yourself. And but it took some time. As I said to Mel before, I call it the I used to call it the prison to palace mentality. Now it's a palace to prison mentality. You know, your mind can be either, and it depends on how you see it. For me, for a lot of years in my 20s, it was a prison. I was regulated by that cell and that bunk and that toilet, and that was it. And then once I actually started sitting with my feelings and dealing with them and getting them out, and being vulnerable, I realized the voice in my mind that would tell me I can't, and no longer told me that. It said, go do it. Try. Why not? They're better than you? No.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me the audacity to push forward, and then it became a palace. Everything that I could dream of, the finest amenities, that lays here now. So I can't. No one's going to be able to get here because I was here. It was
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
It was all them got here, and I allowed that to sit. But no, it's a palace in my mind, though.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to fortify your mind to be that.
Yeah, when you're thinking about the things that you have in your mind, if you believe all the horrible things that people say to you, that's what's going to be projected
Correct.
at you.
Correct.
But if you are happy with self
Yep.
and knowing that, hey, now I'm projecting a
Mm-hmm.
different future and environment for me,
Yep.
how does that make you feel when you're writing? You
That's,
got beyond that.
yeah. Correct. I mean, it's kind of like what you said about them reading my stuff. The task was completed. You know, one of the toughest storms or how I felt like the abyss. I didn't think I would ever get out of it. I don't know, man. I'm
Mm-hmm.
this isn't it. But now to get past it and to know, like, okay, there are people my age, there are people older than me, younger than me, who are still in their own abyss. I was able to get past that, and I'm very, very thankful for that. Because it was a very turbulent time in which it could have taken me,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't allow it to, because I knew I had to master it. You know, as I teach my son, if you're not the master of your emotions, someone else is. And you don't want someone else to be the master of your emotions. Just
Mm-hmm.
because you feel something doesn't mean you have to do something. But we need to sit with our emotions a bit more, because then you'll realize why you're doing certain things. We were talking as we came up about, drinking or like, you know, people, why do you drink every weekend? That's what you want to do. It's what you can. Go for it. But why? People need to do a little bit more root cause analysis and ask themselves
Mm-hmm.
why
Mm-hmm.
until they can no longer answer it. Because at the end of that door, there's your answer. And we need to get better about that, because once you sit down and you actually do some introspection, like I told you, I never went to a therapist. This was my therapy. Never sat on his couch. This was my couch,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that came from just being able to come out here and look crazy. I didn't care if I was talking to myself. I didn't care if I was taking pictures of squirrels. I just was in my own element. I was free. And that was the peace that I got for maybe an hour or two a day. But every time I came here, it was kind of like you said, it's regenerating me. It's trying to get me to who I was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so thankful it did.
So when it comes to your poetry,
Mm-hmm.
speaking it of yourself, how would you finish? It is my destiny too.
You was flowing and you went back in that Shannon Sharp mode. That was a good one. um, It is my destiny to change the way people view themselves through the art I create.
That's powerful right there.
Yeah.
That is powerful.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to leave you with something I did in a series called the Positivity Wall. It was 20 mantras or affirmations that I wrote. I leave you with the first one, which is the most important one. You are amazing. You are beautiful. You are loved. And you are worthy. Say it one more time so you know. You are amazing. You are beautiful. You are loved. And you are worthy. That is a lonely walk by the water.
Fascinated with the scenery, you ain't a local. You love the way I talk, I'm just warming up my vocal.